Las fincas que ellos ya venían haciendo esto, ellos ya estaban afuera, ya se habían organizado, habían formado un sindicato. Entonces ellos vinieron hasta la finca de nosotros y nos dijeron que nos uniéramos al sindicato de ellos para poder ser más fuertes y luchar por nuestros derechos.
After that, one day the company sent out their usual buses to pick up the workers, to pick us up and take us out to the flower fields. But when we got to the company, we were met with private security guards that had guard dogs that were blocking the entrance and only allowing workers that had signed new contracts with the supposedly new owners to enter the company, and the rest of the workers were locked out. The locked out workers continued to report for our regular shifts for 2 weeks and just waited outside the company. At that point, there was another group of workers in a different field with the same owners that were involved in a similar process and had also organized a union. So they approached us and invited us to organize with them so that we could strengthen our struggle for labor rights from this company. So that's what we decided to do.
Luego el abogado nos dijo que debíamos montar una carpa allí afuera para protegernos del sol y el agua y para sentar un precedente de que la gente se diera cuenta de que allí estaban haciendo una masacre laboral. Aquí en esta carpa duramos 3 años. Ahí no terminó la presión psicológica, por el contrario, ya empezaron a llegar, fueron amenazas de los dueños de las fincas y empezaron a decirnos que nos iban a violar, que nos iban a quemar la carpa con nosotras adentro.
At the advice of the legal counsel for the new union, we decided to set up a tent and have a physical demonstration outside this flower company in order to draw attention to the fact that this company was committing labor abuses and to be a really visible symbol of the fact that they were involved in a labor dispute. So we set up this tent that we occupied, that we lived in day and night, and we maintained that protest for 3 years. During that time, we continued to receive a lot of threats and pressure from the company. These groups of workers, the majority of which were women, were told that some of the guards and the company, folks inside the company, told us that they were going to burn the tent down with us inside. They said that they were going to rape us.
Aquí afuera en la carpa habían muchas mujeres madres cabezas de familia. Algunas de ellas fueron echadas de sus casas por no tener para pagar un arriendo, ni tampoco tenían ya para darle de comer a sus hijos. Entonces lo que hicieron fue irse a buscar trabajo, pero ellas estuvieron muy pendientes del proceso. Hubieron otra clase de amenazas y de presiones. Estaba uno por ahí, le echaban el carro por encima. Otras presiones era que ponían a los que antes eran nuestros compañeros a contra. Cuando el abogado venía, a nosotros le preguntábamos que cómo iba el proceso. Entonces él nos decía que no, pues que había que esperar porque todavía no había salido el proceso. Entonces él también, un poco por presionar a la empresa, decía que si no nos solucionaban pronto nos íbamos a tomar la empresa.
The company also, if there were workers outside protesting and someone inside needed to get out, they would take their car out and just try to run workers over on their way out. The company also tried to turn workers inside the company against us, workers that were our former co-workers that we had worked with just a few years before. Throughout this process, the group of workers involved in this protest got smaller because, again, so many of the workers were single mothers that they couldn't, since they weren't earning income, they didn't have any money to pay rent, to buy groceries. Some of them actually lost their homes during this time, and so they had to leave the demonstration and go look for other work. And so we got really impatient with the process, seeing this happen. And when the lawyer came to meet with us, we questioned him about the case, like, when is this going to end? When are we going to see some sort of movement or change from the company? And he said, well, we just have to be patient, and if it doesn't work, then we'll try something more drastic and take over the company.
Fueron 3 años ahí de día y de noche, pues no podíamos dejar, ¿verdad?, la carpa sola porque la orden era que si la carpa quedaba sola la tenían que quemar para que nosotros nos fuéramos de ahí y perdiéramos nuestros derechos.
And when someone from the company overheard the lawyer saying that, and so the next day they sent out workers from inside the company to block the entrance with a tractor and keep out the protesting workers. And the workers inside the company had been told that if any one of the protesting workers made it inside, that all of the workers inside would be held responsible and would be fired. And so, again, we maintained this protest for 3 years. And experienced all these different forms of intimidation and pressure the whole time.
A los 3 años levantamos la carpa porque el abogado nos dijo que ya el proceso lo había cogido la Superintendencia de Sociedades y esta iba a garantizar que nos cancelaran todo lo que nos adeudaba.
Finally, after 3 years, the lawyer told us that we could end our tent occupation and this protest because we had gotten a mediation with the company and that they were going to pay us everything they owed us.
El proceso duró 11 años. A los 11 años nos llamaron y nos dijeron que fuéramos, que nos iban a cancelar todo lo que nos adeudaban. No tuvieron en cuenta que allí habían personas que le habían entregado a esta empresa 20, 25 años, ni gente que estaba a punto de pensionarse y no lo habían podido hacer porque ellos no habían pagado lo de ley, la salud ni nada. Y a cada trabajador nos dieron entre 500 y $1 millón a la persona que más le dieron.
The mediation process, all of that took 11 years to conclude. When we finally got a call saying that the company was ready to make a payment, the group of workers included workers that had been with the company for over 20 years when they were locked out, that should have been able to retire, except that the company had stopped paying their pensions, workers that needed health care and hadn't been able to get coverage. And none of that was reflected in the payments they made. Each worker was given between $250 and $500 total as a settlement, and that was that.
Ya les conté muy resumido lo del proceso de la última empresa que trabajé de flores. Ahora les voy a comentar porque desafortunadamente esto sigue pasando. En esta finca quisieron hacer lo mismo y yo allá fui a hacer un acompañamiento como cactus.
So that's just, again, a very summarized version of one of my experiences at the last company that I worked for. Unfortunately, this sort of thing keeps happening. It's very commonplace throughout the industry. And as part of my work with Cactus, I'm accompanying workers that are involved in similar labor disputes.
Allí mi acompañamiento fue irles a llevar materiales para que ellos y ellas aprendieran un poco más el qué hacer para poder defender sus derechos. También contarles un poco la experiencia que yo había tenido. También hicimos marchas hacia el municipio, pero esto no tuvo ningún efecto. Estuvimos hablando con el alcalde porque allá las autoridades locales están muy aliadas con los empresarios.
So as part of my work with Cactus, I would meet with the workers and bring them different educational materials so they could know their rights in the workplace and know how to defend those rights, and also share with them my experience having gone through something really similar. We also organized marches with the workers. We had meetings with some of the local mayor's offices, but we didn't see much come out of those meetings just because the local governments are very closely aligned with the flower companies in most cases, so it's not the most effective way to make change.
Solo hicimos fue sentar un precedente y que las personas de la localidad se dieran cuenta de que allí también estaban haciendo una masacre laboral. Yo me imagino que allí irá a pasar lo mismo que pasó en Huesmas.
And so really, I think what we mostly achieved with that work was making more visible what was going on, raising awareness in the communities about these realities in the flower sector. But I imagine that this case this particular group of workers, that it's going to conclude in a very similar way to what happened to us at Wexmax Farms.
Ellos hacen estas despidos masivos y estas masacres laborales es cuando no hay mucho pedido. Cuando más hay pedido es cuando están celebrando aquí el San Valentín y el mes de mayo. Entonces, en las otras fechas ellos aprovechan para hacer esto. También otra cosa que hacen es, esta flor que vemos allí ya está pasada de corte. Ellos prefieren botar toda esta flor que venderla para pagarle a los trabajadores lo que les sale.
Companies will typically strategically time these sorts of legal maneuvers, mass firings of workers, labor abuses, to be during the low season. The high season in the flower industry coincides with Valentine's Day in the US through Mother's Day, so February to May. And so companies are able to ensure that they have enough labor to meet that demand. And then as soon as that's over is when they'll declare fake bankruptcy or find reasons to fire large amounts of workers, and in the process will leave just whole fields of flowers that are already blooming to rot. There's no effort made to do anything with those flowers.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Estas masacres laborales que acabamos de ver en la floricultura dan cuenta de la violencia económica que viven los trabajadores en Colombia, y también podemos ubicar que esa violencia económica está también ligada con la violencia física que hay contra las personas que se intentan organizar y sindicalizar en nuestro país. Somos el país más peligroso para ejercer el sindicalismo en el mundo. 707 violaciones a la vida lo comprueban, 47 asesinatos, 412 amenazas de muerte, 129 desplazamientos forzados, y la lista sigue, y es parte de lo que en 2012, estas son cifras del 2012, se estaba reclamando se respetara para la firma del Tratado de Libre Comercio Colombia y Estados Unidos.
And so these labor abuses that we just heard about are an example of the different forms of economic violence against workers in Colombia, which is also very linked to physical violence against workers, especially those that try to defend their rights. Colombia is the most dangerous country in the world for trade unionists, which you can see through some of the most recent statistics. These are statistics from 2012. And they include over 700 registered violations against trade unionists in Colombia, including 47 assassinations, over 400 death threats, forced displacements, forced disappearances. And again, these numbers are only those that are registered as crimes against, like politically motivated crimes against unionists. And so the actual total is likely much higher than that. And it's also important to note that since these statistics are from 2012, they're after the labor action plan that was signed between the US government and the Colombian government, and was supposed to be a commitment to improving human rights and labor rights in Colombia and working conditions for Colombian workers. And actually the implementation and full compliance of the labor action plan was supposed to be a prerequisite for implementing the free trade agreement between the two countries. And concern expressed in US Congress around labor violations in Colombia was the reason that the implementation of the free trade agreement was delayed as long as it was, because it was being debated and held up in US Congress for 8 years before it was finally implemented in 2012, with the labor action plan being implemented just a year prior in 2011. But 3 years later, we're still seeing these types of statistics.
Efectivamente, 2 años después, pues podemos comprobar que las promesas que nos hicieron no se han cumplido. No hay mejores empleos, no hay más empleos, por el contrario, en el sector de la floricultura, en los últimos 5 años, según el sector empresarial, se han perdido 30.000 empleos. En el sector de la agricultura, otros 150.000, y en el sector minero energético, otros 75.000.
And so now, 3 years after the Labor Action Plan, 2 years after the implementation of the Free Trade Agreement, we can state very confidently that the promises made regarding the Free Trade Agreement in Colombia and leading to better jobs, and more jobs have not been fulfilled at all. The quality of jobs, as you can see, is not improving, and the quantity is not either. To the contrary, the flower growers, the flower companies themselves say that in the last 5 years, the industry has lost 30,000 jobs. And the agricultural sector in the last couple of years has lost 150,000 jobs, with the mining and energy sector losing 75,000 jobs as well.
Por eso, pues parte de lo que ha sido esta gira es visibilizar cómo nuestra economía nacional se ha venido quebrando, pero sobre todo quienes han sido afectados del Tratado de Libre Comercio, pues no han sido los sectores empresariales, sino la clase trabajadora colombiana y me imagino que también de aquí de Estados Unidos.
And so this is one of the things that we're trying to make more visible as part of this tour with Witness for Peace, showing that the free trade agreement between the U.S. and Colombia has not benefited the Colombian economy as a whole. It's certainly not benefited Colombian workers. The only people that have benefited from this agreement are large company owners.
Además de dar cuenta de las consecuencias del Tratado de Libre Comercio, pues también venimos desarrollando la propuesta para todos los ciudadanos estadounidenses y es en dos niveles. Uno, el de la incidencia política, la parte más fuerte que tiene que ver con la exigencia a sus congresistas y a sus representantes de contratación directa y respeto a la organización sindical en Colombia. Creemos que esta parte es muy importante y es muy efectiva porque la voz de ustedes, los consumidores, desafortunadamente es mucho más fuerte que la nuestra en nuestro territorio.
And so one thing that we're also trying to promote as part of this tour is political advocacy for better working conditions, both in terms of protections for labor organizers and unionists in Colombia, and better working conditions, especially related to direct contracts for workers. One of the reasons that there's so much working conditions in Colombia are so precarious is the proliferation of different subcontracting and indirect contracting schemes that make it really difficult for workers to defend their rights because they don't have a direct employer that they can take those complaints to. And so, particularly because U.S. citizens are also the primary consumers of these flowers, they have a really powerful role and a very powerful voice in holding your own elected officials accountable to the promises made under the Labor Action Plan, and also pressuring the Colombian government to comply with those same promises. Unfortunately, the Colombian government often listens more to U.S. citizens and the U.S. government than its own citizens. So continuing to advocate with your congressional representatives around these Labor Action Plan issues of protection for unionists and direct contracts for Colombian workers is really important.
Además de las llamadas y cartas que puedan hacer a sus congresistas, también queremos, si nos hacen el favor, de por medio de unos mensajes enviar un saludo de solidaridad, de hermanamiento con los trabajadores y trabajadoras de flores en Colombia. Nosotros se los haremos llegar porque tenemos una campaña desde el 2001 que es el 14 de febrero, Día Internacional de las Trabajadores y Trabajadoras de Flores, que por supuesto es la misma fecha de San Valentín aquí en Colombia, cuando más se consumen flores en Estados Unidos. Les estamos muy agradecidos por este hermanamiento y esperamos que nos ayuden solidariamente y nos apoyen en esta lucha. Gracias.
Along with calling and writing your congressman, we are also trying to build solidarity between the U.S. people and the Colombian people, and direct solidarity with flower workers. So Cactus has a campaign to make February 14th International Flower Workers Day, which of course coincides with Valentine's Day in the U.S. Because that's by far the most difficult time of year for flower workers, when they're often working 20 to 22 hour consecutive shifts, and are often unable to take time to be with their families or even take care of their children. And so this day, when in the U.S. women are being celebrated and are being given these bouquets of flowers, International Flower Workers Day is looking at the labor, sort of the other side of that reality, and what Colombian women flower workers are going through. during the same period. So recognizing and honoring that labor, and also using February 14th as a really key moment to educate people around these issues and around what working conditions in the flower industry actually are like. As part of that campaign, Cactus, on all of the stops we've been making on this tour, has been passing out little cards for people to write brief messages of support or solidarity with flower workers. And so if you're willing now and interested in just writing a very brief message of support, it can be in English or Spanish, and we'll translate as needed. But Cactus is going to take those cards back to Colombia and share them with the flower workers as part of International Flower Workers Day, because it's really important for flower workers to know that their stories were heard and that there's people in the United States that care and that recognize what's going on in the industry and want something better for them. So if you're willing to write a message, we would be very appreciative, and Leo and Josefa will take those back. And thank you all so much for being here and for listening. And we have time now, I think, if anyone has questions or some comments. Is that a hand back there? And then-
Did the growers or the owners of the businesses, did they settle with the workers because of the labor shortage? What motivated them to settle? It sounds like they have so much power, they could just ignore them.
¿Qué fue, o sea, por cuál motivo? ¿Cómo fue que ustedes consiguieron esa mediación? O sea, cuando el caso de Wexmax fue para la Superintendencia de Sociedades, ¿cuál fue el motivo para la empresa someterse a eso? Si ellos tienen tanto poder, si los empresarios tienen tanto poder, ¿para qué tenían que ir a pues de participar en ese proceso con la Superintendencia de Sociedades?
No, es que no fue la empresa, fue el gobierno.
No sé.
O sea, la ley. O sea,
Sí.
como ellos se declararon en quiebra,
Ajá.
entonces, cuando ellos se declaran en quiebra, el proceso siempre se va para la Superintendencia de Sociedades. O sea, no es el empresario, sino es el Estado el que coge ya el proceso.
It wasn't the company freely deciding to do this, it's part of the process of declaring bankruptcy in Colombia. So if a company declares bankruptcy, then their case gets taken over by the state, the Colombian government. So it's an entity of the state that was running that mediation process. It's called the Superintendent of Societies. I'm not totally sure what an equivalent entity would be in the US government, but basically then the state is responsible for divvying up the assets of the company and paying them out in the order that that Colombian law determines. And so under Colombian law, the first priority is for compensating the state for its time and resources.
Surprise, surprise.
Right. The second priority